Gentlewoman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Paul.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Gentlelady for yielding, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to this resolution, not because I am taking sides and picking who the bad guys are and who the good guys are, but I'm looking at this more from the angle of being a United States citizen, an American, and I think resolutions like this really do us great harm. In many ways, what's happening in the Middle East, and in particular with Gaza right now, we have some moral responsibility for both sides in a way, because we provide help and funding for both Arab nations and Israel. And so we definitely have a moral responsibility, and especially now today, the weapons being used to kill so many Palestinians are American weapons, and American funds essentially are being used for this. But there's a political liability which I think is something that we fail to look at, because too often there's so much blowback from our intervention in areas that we shouldn't be involved in. You know, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel, because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. And you say, well, yeah, that was better then and it served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first indirectly and directly through Israel help establish Hamas. Then we have election. Then Hamas becomes dominant, so we have to kill them. You know, it just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden. And we were contending with the Soviets. It was at that time our CIA thought it was good if we radicalized the Muslim world. So we financed the madrasa schools to radicalize the Muslims in order to compete with the Soviets. There's too much blowback. There's a lot of reasons why we should oppose this resolution. It is not in the interest of the United States. It's not in the interest of Israel either.
A lifeline severed for desperate Gazans, as the UN says it is simply too dangerous to operate. The head of the UN Relief and Works Agency reporting back to its headquarters in New York that its staff are coming under fire from Israeli forces. 2 UN aid workers were killed Thursday.
If they give us the clearance to move, then it is wholly and totally unacceptable that their soldiers on the ground are firing at our aid workers.
Israel says it does not target civilians, but Hamas often uses people as human shields. The UN earlier Thursday distributed flour, cooking oil, milk and rice. For many of these people, it is the only food they have. This woman says we have no flour, no gas, no electricity, nothing except for the shelling on our heads. That's all we hear. She says our little ones can't sleep, we can't sleep, and we can't have a moment of peace. This man says we are only alive because death hasn't reached us yet. The Red Cross says days of bombing prevented them from reaching an eastern suburb of Gaza City. When the Israeli military finally allowed them in 4 days later, they found 4 weak children in one house, sitting by their dead mothers. In all, they were surrounded by 12 corpses.
What we were finding are people alive next to dead bodies, without assistance, without water, without food, wounded, no medical treatment, no way to be, or nobody attended to them.
Israel says it's investigating the incident. The UN says it was a very difficult decision to halt its operations in Gaza. The question is, will other aid agencies follow suit, as even distributing food and water is becoming increasingly deadly? Paula Hancock, CNN, on the Israeli-Gaza.
Richard, one of the major factors that affects how the international community views what's going on in Gaza is how much access we have to information about what's happening in Gaza, how many images we get, how close reporters can get. It's important to note that you are not inside Gaza, that you are on the Israel border close to Gaza. Have you heard anything about whether or not Israel will lift the restrictions on allowing foreign journalists into Gaza?
Every single day, reporters have been petitioning to the Israeli government to ask for access. I've called every day and said, when are we going to be allowed in? And one Israeli official had an interesting explanation of this. He said that right now, Israel doesn't want foreign journalists or journalists in general inside the Gaza Strip reporting about the humanitarian situation in there, reporting about the military activities, partly for tactical reasons. They don't want anyone giving away battle details, which is understandable, but mostly to try and manage the image. And the Israelis have timed this out. This official told me that he expects this operation, while negotiations are taking place, will last several more days, and that after that, reporters would eventually be allowed in, but at that stage, Israel is assuming the United States will mostly be focused on all of the coverage around the inauguration, and that viewers simply won't care at that point.
Wow, that's the kind of strategic decision you don't think about when you think about military operations, but I guess that's almost as important as anything else.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.